brought to you by Charity Mobile, the phone company that supports life and family. 5% of your monthly plan price goes to your favorite charity. Buy the way you believe at CharityMobile.com and use promo code TRADITION.
One of the things that traditionalists and traditionally minded Catholics face is this odd rebuke from people saying, you guys won't take no for an answer. Your demands of the traditional mass and everything defy magisterial authority. You reject the authority of popes. The church has moved on and the church has ruled. You should stop fighting what's going on in the church. It's a movement of the Holy Spirit. How dare you demand that a council be declared wrong on the matter of the liturgy and on the sacraments and on whatever else that it is we're arguing in favor of that the church always taught and the church always did until about 60 years ago. That is always thrown in our face. Ironically, it's always done by the same people who themselves can't take no for an answer. I'm here talking about the women's ordination movement. There is a movement in the church right now demanding, of course, the ordination of women. That is not exactly a new thing. The Synod, despite Pope Francis saying no to ordination of women, said no about that in the context of deaconesses, and he emphasized ordination. So you're probably going to get a deaconess that isn't ordained, but will look in every way like she's been ordained. But they keep saying that they won't take no for an answer. And the Synod is continuing to debate this because synodality requires listening and accompaniment and dialogue and all the rest of it. They won't take no for an answer. And it's gotten to the point now where they're trying to force Francis's hand to just accept what it is that he has said no to unequivocally, most recently on 60 Minutes just 4 months ago. So our story today is one as a reminder that the Synod is dangerous, and this movement for ordaining women is not only not going away, the arguments for it are getting increasingly absurd. Synod has been focused on something rather silly. And I say silly because it's heresy, and heresy is always worth mocking. Yes, you can mock heresy. You can mock terrible ideas, and people, you can even to a degree mock those who are married to terrible, terrible ideas. The radical delegates keep bringing this up. These are ladies who cannot take Pope Francis's no for an answer. Now, I am not one who wants to, give him accolades for saying things in public that he may backtrack on in the future, given his track record on these things. But for the immediate now, they refuse to take his answer at face value. So you get this from the Global Sisters Report. This is a website for very, very much post-conciliar style nuns who rarely wear habits, despite this nun on the picture here wearing a habit. Their headline is, "The Potential of Women's Consecrated Life as a Sacrament Equal to Holy Orders." Take all the time you need to wrap your head around that statement. Nuns are usually consecrated. Sacraments, like holy orders, involve consecration. Ergo, why don't we just invent an eighth sacrament? This is what's being discussed at the Synod. I don't believe Francis will go for this. But the media should be covering this stuff and warning people about this, because these are the people who were invited to participate at the Synod. The nuns who wrote this article are saying that either the consecration of nuns should be recognized as part of the sacrament of holy orders, or that the consecration of nuns should be declared a sacrament, basically an eighth sacrament. What's more, they not only want to be deaconettes, they want to be named bishops. And think about the implication of that. What happens if you get a lady bishop? Other than it being an invalid consecration and all the rest of it, because you cannot confer holy orders that way, and it would just be somebody play acting as a bishop. But what, in a fundamental concrete sense, would happen? What does that open the door to? If you get a lady bishop, you can get a popette, a lady pope. This needs to be resisted hard, and it needs to be mocked. Yes, mocked. There is a place for mocking terrible ideas, and heresy should be mocked. But any way you look at it, their proposal here is heresy. And if we had decent leadership in Rome, they'd be told unequivocally no, and warned that what they propose is heresy, that they place their souls in serious danger promoting these ideas, and they place the souls of others in very serious danger when they convince other people to adopt this terrible idea. But that's not going to happen because Francis is not in the business of correcting heretics. He's in the business of going after traditionalists with his biting words. If you don't believe me for what I'm telling you here, let's go to the article. Quote, "Enough is enough, say women from every part of the world at every step of the Synod on synodality. We want to be treated as equals, not only theoretically, in dignity, but also in church ministry. Unfortunately, the present understanding of holy orders," let me say that again, the present understanding of holy orders, meaning the Catholic understanding of holy orders that's been unchanged since, the Last Supper, are reserved for men, upholds hierarchical states of life, and perpetuates patriarchy and discrimination. To settle this issue of women's longing for equality in leadership, it is often proposed that women should also receive the sacrament of holy orders. However, I think most women are neither interested in becoming clerics nor mere administrators. Rather, they just want the church to declare that women are not excluded from ordained ministries because of their flesh. Could we explore alternatives? For example, if consecrated life were recognized as a sacrament, the issue would be largely resolved. It would be like hitting two birds with one stone, as vocations to consecrated life for women would likely increase, thereby helping reduce the shortage of priests in several parts of the world. How would this happen? In an earlier column, which I see as foundational to my suggestion, I mentioned that Paul's words, "Christ is the head of every man, and a husband the head of his wife, and God the head of Christ," see 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 3, could imply that Christ becomes the head of a woman united with him in consecrated life, just as he is the head of every male priest. Both are answerable to him. I don't think Paul's words intend to convey that men should dominate women. Instead, he is trying to find a workaround to patriarchal arguments based on the Old Testament, which are becoming obstacles to women's ministry in the church. Let's pause there. He's trying to undermine the old law. Now, he doesn't need to undermine the old law. He abolished the old law, but he's not abolishing the morality that came down from on high to the keepers of the old law, nor is he trying to get rid of the old social arrangements. They turn Christ into a revolutionary. That's what they do here. That's why he adds, "Woman is not independent of man, or man of woman in the Lord. For just as woman came from man, so man is born of a woman. Accepting Jesus as the Lord demands a new way of life. A consecrated woman can become another Christ through imitation of him and a life of holiness in union with him. It is unnecessary for any disciple to be male to represent them. Thus, her status as a minister becomes equivalent to that of a priest." Does this imply consecrated women can take up the same roles in ministries as those of priests? Maybe, or maybe not. This needs more reflection. However, appointing women bishops from consecrated life could be the beginning of an alternative pathway to leadership and ministry in the church. Women have been apostles in the early church. Who but women are blessed with the natural gifts of birthing, feeding, nurturing, and teaching? Isn't grace said to be built on nature? Moreover, servant leadership is natural to most women, although it could be said to be a positive side effect of patriarchy if it does not turn into servitude. Enough of that. They're not hiding it. They're not hiding it. Again, this is why Catholic media, hostile to the Synod, should be at the Synod to catch all this stuff. This is what they're talking about there. I don't think they're going to get very far with this, but they are fully embracing heterodoxy. They're giving voice to this stuff, and then going to invite them back next year to be in their little working groups, who will then issue their own little reports to Francis, and he can issue 1 or 5 documents, either confirming what they say or giving a more moderate version of it, or, God willing, rejecting their nonsense, although I don't think the latter is going to happen. But that is what you're seeing. They don't hide their contempt for Scripture, for the magisterial authority, or for, in general, the faith traditions that go back 2,000 years. They don't have any respect for it. They impose modern values, modern philosophy, modern errors on the church, and then demand that the church accept them, that the church submit to the wisdom of the modern world. It's nonsense. It's dangerous nonsense, and it should be resisted at every turn. And unfortunately, they're given a voice at the Synod. And traditionally minded Catholics are few at the Synod, if any. It's practically a miracle that there's enough Catholics at the Synod rejecting all this decentralization nonsense that we hear so much about. Wonder if they will call the adults into the room the next time a nun gets up there and demands to be made a bishop, like they did when I reported to you earlier that they brought the adult theologians into the room to let people know that, oh, you don't have to worry too much about the decentralization thing. We already have most of that now anyway. You think they're going to give them equal treatment? I kind of doubt it. So I'm curious, are you surprised that women religious are the driving force behind this nonsense? I am not surprised to see that. I'm a little surprised to see that she was wearing a habit. Usually the women religious who demand ordination are not the type to wear habits. So I was a little surprised to see that myself. But beyond that, I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised to see that they would stretch the concept of a consecration that women religious receive and try to turn that into a sacrament, because essentially what they're admitting is that the church has always been wrong about the nature of sacraments, and that destroys magisterial authority. Like I said at the beginning, these are the same folks who tell us that the traditional mass, we should just give up on it, we should listen to the authority of the church and all the rest of it. The difference is traditionalists want to go back to things the way things had always been and developed organically over time before about 60 years ago. Whereas those advocating for this kind of change to the sacramental nature of things, they're arguing for innovation. That's sort of the difference. But I'm curious what you think about this. So let me know in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.